Welcome to Kol Isha, the podcast that gives Orthodox women a voice. Welcome back to Kol Isha. This week, I'm really excited to introduce a wonderful guest by the name of Eliana Fine. Eliana is joining me from West Hempstead, New York. She is a wife, a mom of a 3-year-old boy, and she is a medical student in her second year right now. Eliana went to Stern College where she got her BA in biology, and right now she's in her second year of medical school at the Renaissance School of Medicine at Stony Brook University in Long Island. And Eliana is an aspiring fertility specialist. So Eliana, welcome to Kol Isha, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Eliana, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your journey through medical school up to this point, and also a little bit about where you plan on going from here. And, you know, there's a lot of women that are in the frum community who might have similar aspirations to you, or people who are also going to school, you know, trying to work on degrees or careers that are challenging. And sometimes it's just really nice to hear from someone going through something similar, or someone that might inspire you to do something that you've dreamed of for a long time. So I wanted to talk to you today about your journey and a little bit about your background and what it took to get to this point. So Eliana, can you tell me a little bit about your family, where you grew up, and sort of what gave you this idea to go to medical school? Is it something you wanted to do for a long time? Is it something you recently decided to do? Tell us a little bit about your background, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. I went to the local Beit Yaakov school, Hebrew Academy of Cleveland, and then JOWMA High School, which was its associated high school. And then I went to Benos Chava Seminary, and then I got married, and then I started Stern College. Growing up, I really didn't know any other from female physicians or trainees, meaning residents or medical students. It's something that I always thought of in the back of my head because I really enjoy helping people. I've always volunteered for the Friendship Circle in high school, and then camp after camp, and then I did Kids of Courage. So I've always been helping in the special needs community and really loved it and wanted to help other people. But it was just a matter of how am I going to do that. After high school, I actually took an EMT course. A friend of mine wanted to take it because she was interested in going to nursing school, and she wanted to take that course, and she kind of convinced me to go with her and take it. And I actually really, really loved it. And that was my first hands-on experience in the medical field, and I knew from then on that this is what I want to do. I guess in terms of career goals, I think originally I always wanted to be a party planner. And I still kind of do. And I always joke that in 10 years from now, I'd rather look back and think about how I wasted my time in med school and then just be a party planner versus wanting to, in 10 years, regret not going. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit about me.
So when you became an EMT, did you then work as an EMT or volunteer as an EMT?
No. So actually, I did it in the year right after high school, in between high school and seminary. And then I went to seminary, so I couldn't work as an EMT like in Israel because I was certified in Ohio. And then I got married in the summer right after I came back from seminary. And then I moved to New York, which is where my husband was working. And then I got into college there, so that's kind of where we settled. And I was just very busy with my undergraduate classes. I didn't have the time to then go and work as an EMT. But I really just enjoyed taking the course, and I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity.
Got it. So you went to JOWMA High School, which is like an all-girls Beit Yaakov type of high school. And then you went to Benos Chava, which is of a similar kind of type. I mean, it's like hard to put things in boxes, but also like a Beis Yaakov type seminary. And in between, you became an EMT and decided that you wanted to go to medical school. So do you feel like your Jewish education and the high school and seminary that you went to prepared you well for the decision to go to medical school? Like, how did that play out?
So, unfortunately, or maybe not unfortunately, it did not. So growing up, I just always remember all the teachers always saying, so one day when you grow up and you're a mother, one day when you're a wife, one day when you have children, there's nothing about one day when you have a career, one day when you go to college, one day when you decide what you want to do with your life. Not that like just being a wife and a mother is not enough. That's wonderful, and some people really enjoy that, but then for some people that's not what they want, and they want to go to college, get a degree, or have a career. So definitely it was not something that was encouraged. And I grew up, my mother was a stay-at-home mother, and she was the best. And all of my friends' mothers were actually all pretty much stay-at-home mothers as well. I going to seminary, college was something that was very much frowned upon. For me, I'm a very realistic person, and I also knew that I wanted to be able to help other people. I didn't just want to be a stay-at-home mom, and I wanted to have a career. So I would say, like, in terms of like preparing me, like, I think having that like background, the hashkafa, like, gave me that solid foundation of Yiddishkeit. But then in terms of making that decision to go to college was something that I guess I had to do like innately. My grandfather was a big physician, so I knew a little bit about medicine through him. He actually never really spoke much about medicine. He was just like my grandfather. But he would always ask me like, oh, what do you want to do when you grow up? And that was something that very much stood apart from what I guess I've been told in high school or in seminary. There wasn't really much of what do you want to do when you grow up. It was more like you go through the motions, like you go to high school, you go to seminary, you got married, you have kids, and there wasn't really much after that. And then for those of us that decided to, I guess, go to college or have a career was something that we kind of had to navigate that path on our own.
Yeah, I feel the same way, like, from myself. I had a very similar experience also in, like, a Beis Yaakov type school. And I remember when I was in 11th grade, I think it was, the high school principal came in the room, and she had, like, a big stack of pamphlets. And she just sort of, like, dumped them down on the desk. And there was, like, only a few people in the classroom because maybe it was, like, recess time or something. So she just kind of, like, slapped down this big packet of pamphlets, and she goes, if anyone's planning to take the SATs, here's the thing that you have to fill out. And I was like, wait, like, what are the SATs? Like, how do we do this? And I was like, wait, maybe I do need to take this. Do I need to take this? And I literally had like no clue about it. And I sat for the SATs with like no preparation, which is funny to me because now like I know so many people who spend a ton of money on tutors because their SAT scores are like key for getting into their school, which is going to determine the rest of their life's path. And it's like this whole massive thing. And I was like, I don't know what this is. Okay, I'll take it. Like, and I sat for the test, and it's funny because like I've never done well at math, so I didn't do well on the math part, but the rest of the part I guess I did like okay on, and it didn't wind up having like a huge impact on my life when I went to school, but I did find that like in college I did struggle with certain things because like the school I went to for high school didn't have very sophisticated science programs, and that was a huge part of what I did. Like chemistry background, we had pretty much none. Biology was like super, super basic. We never had a lab. When I went to undergrad for my bachelor's, we had a chemistry lab, and I was like, what's a Bunsen burner? Like I literally didn't know anything, So there was this huge learning curve that I had, and it's funny to me in hindsight. Like, thank God I did okay, but there was this like huge gap between, and what's interesting also, you mentioned how there's really only one path that you're prepared for. And I recently had this conversation with a friend of mine who she is in her early 30s and she's not married, and she said that she was recently asked on a survey, like, do you think that your yeshiva education prepared you well for the shidduch scene? And she said no, because it never prepared me for any option other than getting married and having kids at a young age. And that didn't happen for me. And there's absolutely no other like course or path that you're prepared for being a possibility in life. Like she said, here I am, I have a great career, like I've been successful, up to this point. And I did not follow the typical path of getting married right away and having a family right away. So like this was not something I was ever prepared for. So it's interesting that you bring that up, because there's sort of like two areas where like maybe the yeshiva and East Yaakov system need to work on like filling a gap there, like not everyone is going to follow the same exact path.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And one thing that you mentioned that your friend said is something that really stuck out to me, because I see it all the time with pre-med students who reach out to me, or high school students interested in medicine, and their biggest concern is, so I want to get married, I don't know who I'm going to marry, so like I don't know if what my husband's going to want, like I want to do like a career that he wants me to do. Or let's say they want to have kids right away. And I'm just like, you don't know what Hashem has in store for you. And some people, it takes 5-10 years for them to get married. Some people get married right away, and then it takes 5-10 years for them to have children. So if you want to say, oh, I want to wait until I get married, or I want to wait until I have like all of my children, like you don't know what's in store for you. So if instead of just waiting, if you just do it and take it one day at a time, like right now I am not married, or right now I'm not on my first kid, or right now I don't have my second kid, and just take it day by day, like who knows, in 10 years from now you might be at a place that you never expected to be at.
Right. I think that's very true. So yeah, it's really important to just sort of like determine what you want to do rather than trying to plan your life in advance. Well, you have no guarantee that your life is going to go exactly as you plan. And that goes back to that idea of that sort of ingrained in us, like you're going to get married, you're going to have babies, and it's not necessarily always going to work out that way. So that's very true. But, in your case, you are a young wife and a young mom. So I'm sure that presents itself, with a whole bunch of challenges being in medical school and having gone through undergrad. So what's that like for you, being a young mom, having your first kid, and of course having to tend to your home, your husband, all of that? What sort of challenges has that brought up for you in all this?
Yeah, so actually, I guess let me tell you a little bit more about my educational path. So I went to high school, went to seminary, got married, and then because I spent that year studying in Israel and seminary, I wanted to only take 3 additional years in college before medical school. So in order to do that, I had to go to school in the summer. Also, I got married right after seminary. I came home and I got engaged in July. I got married in August. Don't ask.
Wow, that's very fast.
Yeah. So it just like ended up working out that way. So because I got married at the end of August, I missed the opportunity to start my first college semester in the fall, which like normally like you start college like in August. So instead I took about 6 months, like that first fall semester. I took that semester off to, I guess, figure out how to be married for the first 6 months. And then I started undergrad in the spring semester, which starts like in about, like, I guess January time it starts. So with that being said, for me to be in school for 3 years total, so 6 semesters, and then including, that doesn't include the summer. So I went to summer school too. So the point of me saying this is that I graduated college in the fall semester. So meaning instead of graduating college in May, I graduated college in January. And so my senior year of college, I got pregnant and I was studying for the MCAT, and I ended up taking the MCAT about 2 weeks before I gave birth. And then I had to finish that semester.
Oh, wow.
So what was nice about that was that after I finished college, I had about 8 months in between finishing college and starting med school that I was able to be a stay-at-home mother. I guess it was definitely challenging figuring out like how to be a new mother and take care of a child while commuting. So I commuted to the city to school. I was living at Brockway at the time. And then it was really nice to have that break to just be a stay-at-home mom.
Sure, and that must have been hard to go back to school for 2 weeks right after having a newborn, though.
Yeah, I honestly, it's such a blur.
I think that beginning part always is a blur.
I think it was also, like, I took the MCAT. I knew I wanted to go to med school, so it was more like pushing through. Like, this is what I have to do, and then I'm going to graduate, and then I'm going to get into med school. I'm going to have 8 months off to be a stay-at-home mother. So it's just kind of like pushing through to get to that point. And then, so when I started med school, my son was already about a year, almost a year and a half. And then I think that was actually easier because, like, navigating, like, having your first child and, like, being a new mother is really difficult. And I feel like it was nice to have that, to be past that by the time I started med school, because med school in and of itself is a whole new challenge. So to have, like, a 1.5-year-old, I feel like was a lot easier than maybe having a newborn.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So now I am in my second year. So my son is turning 3 next month.
Oh, cute. So, like, do you feel like you were prepared for these challenges, like mentally and maybe emotionally, maybe hashkafically? Like, there's so many different areas. And of course, I'm sure going in, you had this idea like, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a challenge. I don't think you were under any illusions that it's going to be easy. But, like, do you think you had a good picture of what it was going to be like, or were you, like, totally thrown for a loop?
So, I don't know. I feel like, thank God I'm pretty, like, adaptable, like, my situation. If someone would have told me, like, in high school or even in undergrad when I was pre-med, you're going to have to study, like, so hard. You're going to have to wake up early and spend, like, 8 hours a day studying in addition to going to classes or in addition to doing a rotation in a hospital. I'd be like, that's crazy. I can't do that. In addition to taking care of a child and being a wife and hosting Shabbos and whatever other responsibilities that come along with being married and being a mother. I would have been like, that doesn't sound like I want to do that. Like, part of me kind of like, I want to go out to coffee with my friends. Like, I want to have that, like, relaxed life. So I guess, though, once I started medical school, so I took out student loans in order to pay for medical school, and I feel like I want to be able to pay them back and not have my husband pay them back for me. And, like, I am kind of, like, too far into it to be able to quit. So it's kind of like on one hand. And then on the other hand, like, I also just, like, I really want to go to medical school, and I really want to have that ability. And I feel like it's such an empowering ability and something that is, like, I can't take for granted, like, to have this opportunity. Hundreds and thousands of students apply every year to medical school, and about, I think the number is like 7% or something actually get in. So I have, like, a very, like, unique opportunity that I'm so grateful for, that I want to be able to, like, finish and accomplish. And it's kind of like, I kind of feel like every day is a little bit of a challenge. Like, am I going to pass this test? Like, can I get through this day? Can I, I guess kind of like a game where, like, am I going to pass this level? Like, can I do it? Like, I guess I like to challenge myself, and this is kind of, I don't know if this makes sense.
It does. And I think something that you said just before, like, it kind of alludes to a lot of things in life where, like, I guess I like to think of it a little bit like the hamster wheel. Like, once you're on this wheel, like, you're not just going to jump off. You just got to keep pedaling and pedaling till you got through it, you know? And, like, you enter this mode of sort of maybe like a little bit of a survival mode where, like, yes, it's really, really hard. And yes, there's a lot of challenge involved, but, like, you're in it. Like you said, you have to get through this now because that's your mindset. You want to get to the end. You have an end goal. You want to pay off your loans.
Yeah.
So it's like, now I'm in it. Now I'm just going to keep going. Like, you know, I think like we do that so often in life, especially as women, right? Like, even having kids, right? Like, a lot of people do it, but it's not easy by any means. And, like, when you're faced with, you know, it's the middle of the night and your baby's crying, it's like, well, you just got to keep going because there's really no other alternative, you know?
That's true. No, and I think, like, it's also super important to think about the long-term goals. Like, my long-term goals is I really want to be able to help people. I want to be able to help my community and give back to others. And I really want to become an infertility specialist, and that's going to take some effort, or a lot of effort. And it's also very interesting because I don't know about, I guess, like, the way you grew up or your high school or seminary experience, but I feel like people weren't so motivated. And it's very interesting to then be in an environment where it's kind of like nebby to, like, do well in school. Like, I just remember in high school, like, especially, like, the English classes, like, everyone's like, oh, English, it's so nerdy. Like, you want to do well in the Hebrew classes, and people kind of pushed off the English classes.
Yes.
And to go from an environment like that to medical school where people are so motivated, like, people do insane things. Like, they do research, they are phenomenal students, they volunteer. Like, people are actually, like, it's a whole new world. So that's kind of like my environment now. We are, through my high school friends, it's going to be like a crazy thing. But, like, I guess the way I see myself as a person to my classmates, I'm like, oh my God, they're doing so many things. And, like, I'm not keeping up with that. So it's kind of like wherever you are in your environment, you kind of, like, adapt to.
Yes, and you've suddenly been thrown into this environment with a bunch of overachievers, because if you think about it, like, your colleagues now, or rather your fellow students now, like, their whole lives have been planned around this. And so, like, ever since they've been, you know, in 8th grade and freshmen in high school and juniors in high school, like, they've been planning to want to go to medical school. So they've had to have top grades. They've had to join all these extracurricular activities and get on the debate team and be the science nerds and all these things. And, like, they've really been so, like, involved in this for such a long time. And now all of a sudden you're coming from a Beis Yaakov environment and realizing, like, how different their lives leading up to this has been versus yours. And, like, I didn't go to medical school, I went to nursing school, but I totally hear what you're saying, because when I was in high school, also Beis Yaakov type of high school, the only thing that anyone really cared to do well in were the Limudei Kodesh, because pretty much everyone's only goal was to get into the seminary they wanted to go to. And I actually didn't go to seminary. It just wasn't going to happen for me. My dad didn't believe in sending his girls to seminary, really, and I knew it just wasn't gonna be a focus of mine. And I was not really that motivated as a high school student. I was like, okay, whatever, you know, like, I'll get through it. It never occurred to me that I even could get really good grades, because I never pushed myself, because I didn't know what I wanted my future to be. And I just knew that I wasn't, like, having to push myself to get into a top seminary. So I just kind of, like, sailed through. And then once I kind of decided what I wanted to do and really got motivated about it, I realized that I could do really well in school. And I never realized that I could do well before I started nursing school. And at that point, I started getting really good grades. And I was like, hey, this is interesting. And now what's funny is that at this point, compared to the rest of my class, I have probably one of the more advanced degrees and careers versus all of those girls that went to great seminaries, which is kind of funny.
No, for sure. Something that I think about all the time is that I feel I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I have. But I really see this a lot, and it's something that, like, I guess I would love to hear your opinion on. I feel like people, like, going to college or going to nursing school or going to medical school or law school, like any advanced type of degree, like, people don't even, like, think about, like, it's not a goal of theirs, where it's something that, like, for example, like, we don't think, like, oh, I'm going to be able to fly one day. Like, my goal is never to fly, because, like, do, like, humans ever have wings? No. So, like, it's not something I'm going to think about ever. Like, that's not a dream of mine. So growing up, where there's no talk about going to college or having a career, like, people just don't even think about it. And those people that actually do decide to go, like, they had to make that active choice about it versus, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, like, go to college, like, because that's not really something that people do.
Right. Yeah, completely. But in a way, I'm grateful that I didn't have that much pressure all throughout my high school years, like so many people do, right? Like, people who are, like, sort of molded into becoming medical students, becoming doctors, or, like, you know, people that come from really academic families, or, like, are pressured to have to go to an Ivy League school, so they always have to do well, and there's this, like, constant pressure even from when they're very young. Like, that's a lot of pressure on a kid. And in a way, I'm kind of grateful that I did get to kind of chill out and enjoy my high school years and hang out with my friends and take it easy. And then eventually, although this wasn't the plan from day one, but eventually it worked out to where I buckled down when I really had to, and I did graduate with honors, and I was able to go on and get my master's and all that, and thank God have a great career. But, you know, I was able to do all that without the pressure all throughout my younger years. So there's that, you know, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But one thing, though, that I think about is that, like, it worked for me and, like, it worked for you, but there are so many other students out there who don't even, like, have the opportunity to think about, oh, hey, this is something I might enjoy, and this is something I might want to do, because they were never given that opportunity. Whereas, like, if someone went to a school that that did emphasize, like, I guess, getting good grades or going to college, like, they would have had so many other opportunities and doors open to them.
Right.
They wouldn't necessarily otherwise have.
Or at least present it as an option where, like, hey, this is something you could do if you wanted to.
Right.
Right. So, you know, there's probably a lot of young women out there, a lot of girls high school aged or, you know, maybe seminary age, people who are thinking about what they want to do. And like you said, like, they may have come from a more Base Yaakov or more insular kind of community where college is not encouraged, or maybe they go to school where it is something that's encouraged, but they kind of feeling like maybe they want to put family first, or maybe they don't know if they could juggle so many possibilities at once. So, you know, what kind of advice, or what do you sort of have to say to a young woman who might be going through this this thought process, or this, you know, career preparation, career considerations, and they're thinking like, you know, maybe I do want to be a doctor, maybe I could do it, or maybe I want to be a lawyer, maybe I could do it, but going through a lot of schooling sounds really, really tough. Doing all this with a family sounds really, really tough. And I know you said a lot of people reach out to you with this kind of question. What's your response to those kind of questions that people ask you?
So my response is always, like, you have to do what makes you happy, and you have to, like, you have to, like, not think about anyone else. Like, it gets to a point in your life where it's not about what your friends are doing. It's not about what your friends want. It's about what you want, and you have to make that decision, and you have to be strong enough, if it's something that you really want, to be able to really, like, stick up for this decision. In terms of, like, when deciding, like, to get married, like, who do you want to marry? Like, a lot of one other thing you didn't mention is that a lot of pre-med students who aren't necessarily married yet, their biggest concern is shidduchim. Like, like, people are not going to want to marry you if like you say you want to go to med school. Like, that's kind of something across the board that I've heard so many times that I guess it's like a thing, which is unfortunate.
But is it a thing? I wonder why that is. Like, why would
Yeah.
someone not want to go out with a girl who's in med school? It sounds like a great, motivated girl, smart.
So my response is always like, you don't want to marry that person. You don't want to marry into a family or want a mother-in-law that's going to not want you to go to med school if that's something that you do, and that the person that's right for you is going to be supportive of what you want to do. Like, that should be, versus like other women or girls, they say like, oh, I want like my husband to help me make the decision, like going to med school or PA school. It's like, no, like, you need to make that decision for yourself and marry someone that's going to respect that decision.
And that seems so obvious, but I guess it's not.
No, unfortunately it's not. But I always say, like, also, like we said before, you don't know what Hashem has in store for you. So you may like plan, like, oh, you want your husband to help make this decision for you. But then, you know what? Like, God forbid you don't get married for 10 years. Like, you would have already been a doctor by the time, like, you've gotten married. Like, if you just, like, stuck to what you wanted. Or in terms of, like, having a family and, like, you don't think you're going to be, like, with your children enough. Or, I guess, I don't know what. But then in terms of that, like, you don't know. Like, hopefully, like, you'll be able to have, like, all the kids you want right away as soon as you want them. But sometimes that doesn't happen. So it's really important to take life, like, one day at a time. Like, right now, am I married? Like, should that be a focus in my decision-making process?
Right.
If that's not the case. Or, like, having children. Like, do I have children right now? Am I pregnant right now? Like, and then take it from there. Don't take it in terms of, like, what you want your life to, like, pan out in the next few years, because you really don't know what's going to happen. And then, like, my biggest advice also is, you want to marry someone who's supportive of you. Like, medical school is hard. Undergraduate, it's like I guess pre-med undergrad is hard. And so there's so many times where a spouse can say, you know what, this is enough. Like, it's way too hard. Let's forget it. If that happens in undergrad, it's a lot easier, because then you could just not go to med school, I guess. But you want to marry someone who's going to support your decisions. And someone who's going to make your life easier in terms of, like, meeting your goals.
So you have to know what your goals are in order to find your right spouse, as opposed to trying desperately to find a spouse to help you then figure out what your goals are, or to see if your goals align with his, you know.
And I think and it's interesting, I think there's a lot of pressure on girls in terms of getting married young and who they marry, that they kind of, like how you said before, it's like getting into seminary is the goal. Like, once you're finished seminary or high school, getting married is the goal. And people will, and I see that girls kind of change, like, their own personal goals based on, like, wanting to get married just because, like, maybe all their friends are, or that's the pressure that they're feeling. Even if they genuinely want to get married, a lot of them, like, I don't know. I think it's a little bit sad, but I don't think we're taught, or the majority of us are taught to kind of have goals and stick to your goals. Like, people really, that's not something that's emphasized. So it's not something I would judge anyone for doing. But I just think that, like, I guess it's just life. Like, it's a little bit sad that happens.
Yeah, but, you know, you make a really good point, because I think you're an excellent example of this for people to see. And then I wish it would be more mainstream and more promoted, especially in the school systems, to empower girls who will eventually become young women and then, you know, moms and all that, to sit down and analyze their own goals and come up with what they want to do independent of anyone else. Like, yes, you know, our Jewish values encourage us to be wives and moms, which is all, like, super, super important. But we're our own individual people too. And there are so many of us that want to be doing things in addition to being moms and wives, and in many, many cases, those goals make us better moms and wives. So we should be encouraging our girls to think about those things, and instead we're creating, you know, back to this, we're creating this very narrow path without too many other open options for girls to explore and think beyond, well, what am I going to do other than being a wife or mother? Do I want to do something other than being a wife or mother? Or if life doesn't pan out to me becoming a wife or mother quickly, what other options do I have that can give me fulfillment during that time? Like that's a very important thing to consider. Life doesn't always work out exactly the way you want. So yeah, I agree. That's really important.
Yeah, so maybe it's like about making that choice, whether it's making that choice to get married, have children, be a stay-at-home mother. Like as long as you're making choices, which I feel like a lot of people actually don't, and it sounds silly, like, oh, make a choice, but people don't realize they have choices. Right. And so then they just kind of live life, or choosing to go to college, choosing to have a career, choosing to go to work. It's just important to make those decisions and to take the time to think about how you have choices in life.
Right. And I mean, this is a whole other topic that I don't want to sidetrack completely from our focus here, but just like to segue a little bit away. I think it's really important for women and girls when they're younger to think about having an education, because even if you get married really young, which you want to do, and have kids really young, which you want to do, and life works out exactly that way and it's the way you wanted it to, sometimes, unfortunately, tragedy happens and people can lose their source of income. A spouse can pass away. And I think, so this is something that I believe very strongly, that women should at least have the ability to be able to earn enough money to support themselves and their families in the situation where they might really need to. And so, being a wife and a mother are super important, but what if a woman then needs to go to work because they really, really need that money? And, if she has a career and a background set up for her, it might be easier for her to then support her family, versus if she has no education or no chosen career, and then all of a sudden she's thrown into the situation where what's she going to do? So that's just my own separate little thing.
I think about this all the time, especially I grew up in a family, I know my parents can't support me, or if something ever happens, I want to be able to have that ability for myself, for God forbid, which people are always oh, don't think like that, that's so silly, but I guess I'm very realistic.
No, it's like buying life insurance. I mean, people buy life insurance, not that they ever wanted someone to die young, but, it happens. And then there's the insurance policy in case of an emergency. That's the same thing,
Right.
So that's how I look at it. So, you're juggling so many different roles here. And whenever I look at people who seem really busy and really accomplished, and they're doing so many things, like you said, now you're hosting Shabbos, and you're in medical school, and you're a mom, and you're a wife, and you've got so much going on, so many balls in the air. So I always like to ask people, what do you put aside? What sort of do you allow to fall by the wayside? Because we're only 100% of ourselves, and we can't give 100% to everything, right? We have to divide ourselves up. We have to prioritize. So what do you do to sort of take some of the pressure off? Do you have family to help you? Do you sometimes not make dinner or buy takeout? I don't know. What do you do when you're stressed out and you have too much going on?
Yeah. So, I live in New York, and my parents and my in-laws both live in Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
So I really don't have family nearby. So I don't have family to rely on. But we do, I'm very thankful for, we have a live-in nanny that is really my teammate, that really helps me with everything. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but in order for me to, have enough time in my day to study, go to school, come home, and spend time with my family, especially take care of my son, put him to bed every night. And so I don't know if I said this before, but in order for me to have enough time in my day to go to school, to study, to spend time with my son, spend time with my husband, I wake up really early in the morning. And just to add more hours to my day, especially because I want Shabbos and Sunday off, where I don't need to study, so I can just focus on my family, because med school is hard and it is a sacrifice for my husband. And sometimes like we need a day where it's like about spending time with each other when during the week we're so busy. So I really, in order to be able to do that, I wake up early during the week to try to get all my studying in. And she also helps me prepare dinner. So I would say that's something that I definitely have help with, that allows me to be able to do everything that I'm doing. Also, I used to host a ton every Shabbos. I host like beautiful, elaborate meals. And that kind of stopped once I started med school. We don't see each other so much during the week. That Friday night and Shabbos day became like really important to us. So sometimes I have guests and then I have to do the whole like 5-course meal. Then I get all fancy. But then when it's just us, like it really, like I feel like embarrassed compared to like what I usually make when I host. But I'll just have like a 1-course meal for Friday night and Shabbos day, and that is it.
So that's your break for having a little bit of downtime.
Yeah, like
no, it's important. I think it's important, and I think it's important for like people to hear the reality is that you can't do 100% of the time. Like something has to give, even though like, and I think we lose this a lot in social media because people don't want to hear other people like kvetch and complain about how hard life is on social media. So like you try to present the positive and, be upbeat and present like, a good face. But at the same time, then what gets lost is that there are a lot of challenges. So, and I think you do a good job of highlighting this too. But it's just important for people to hear and understand that, like, there's whenever you're doing something big or whenever you're doing something time consuming or that looks like glamorous or whatever, there's always going to be challenges involved. And like, you always have to make decisions of like what you're going to let go, and it's important to be able to do that. So
definitely 100%.
All right, great. So one last question I wanted to ask you, because I was super impressed about this. You started a professional organization for Jewish Orthodox women. And I was really impressed when I learned about this because you are so early in your career, and yet you started an organization that got buy-in from so many women, including some very seasoned doctors in our community. What inspired you to do that, and how did you go about doing it? Like, what gave you the confidence that you could pull this off at such an early stage in the game?
Sure. So it's actually a funny story. I guess my driving force was recognizing that despite all that has been accomplished for women in growth worldwide, many still question their ability to commit to having a family and maintaining a frum lifestyle with their commitment to pursuing a career in medicine, because it's a long journey and it could be very difficult. So like a lot of people don't necessarily feel like they can do it all. And a lot of people, like growing up in a community like my own, where there aren't any firm female physicians or trainees around, is that they don't even know that it's possible, or they don't have the support system. If they make the decision to go, they feel like they're paving the path for themselves, or at least that's how I felt. But I knew there had to be other firm physicians out there. So I decided to start an Instagram to kind of showcase what it's like to be a frum woman and mother in medical school, and to portray what it's like to be a medical student with all the challenges that come along with being a mother and being married in medical school. And through that, I really hope to inspire other girls and women who wanted to pursue a career, and to kind of showcase that, like, if I can do it, you can do it. And I was so surprised to meet other frum female physicians on Instagram, and the first physician I met was Dr. Minnie Knoll. And she's literally amazing. Like, she's who I want to be when I grow up. When I think of her, she has 4 kids. She has her life in order. She's a well-respected, well-known physician. And we became friends on Instagram. And she also grew up in the Beis Yaakov world. Sent her boys to regular yeshiva schools, and we became friends. And I was just so excited to meet someone else like me. And when I would talk to her, I would always like ask her, like, are there any other like for female physicians? Like, I can't be the only one in medical school, because I grew up, I didn't know anyone. No one who I grew up with would have ever gone to medical school. So she introduced me to this Facebook group called the Frum Female Facebook, and she invited me to this group, and I was shocked to see 400 members. I was like, wow, 400? Like, we're all of these women. How come I don't know any? And I always wanted to meet people in person, just like for the support, to know that I'm not paving this path by myself. And so I asked her, I'm like, do people ever get together? And she said that people like are so busy, people really don't get together, but I think a lot of people would like to get together because a lot of people don't know each other. They only know each other through this Facebook group. And so I think it was almost a year ago now. I think I had a break from school. I had a weekend off or something. And I messaged Dr. Knoll. I said, would you be interested in like getting together, maybe having some sort of networking dinner? We could all meet at like a kosher restaurant, and it could just be really nice. And would you come and speak if like we do this, so that it can like be an official type of get together? And she thought it was a great idea. And she said yes, of course. And then there was this other physician, Dr. Maslow, who's a reproductive endocrinology and infertility specialist. So she does infertility, and that is what I want to do. And I always wanted to meet her, because I've seen her in like different magazines and Jewish newspapers doing like really great community outreach. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to reach out to her and say, hey, do you want to come to this like get together? Do you want to come and speak with Dr. Knoll? And she actually really liked the idea too. And she said, yes, of course, I'll come and I'll speak. So then I ended up posting on this Facebook group that creating a get together. Does anyone want to like help? And I got 30 responses of people saying that they really wanted to like meet up.
Wow.
So, and then also some physicians reached out and said they would love to help as well. And then through that, I guess, conversation, I got like a total of 5 physicians to come and speak, including Dr. Knoll and Dr. Maslow. And those were Dr. Mira Hellman, she's a gynecologist, oncologist, and Dr. Sherry Newstein-Roselle, who's a pediatrician who actually started the Facebook group, and Dr. Anna Weinstock-Newberger, who is a oncologist and hematologist in Baltimore. Oh, another thing about me, I love web design and graphic design. So when I went to make like a website, like I realized you can like buy a website domain that has a name like .org instead of .com. And I thought that was so cool. I was like, hey, why not make an organization so it sounds like an official get together, so that people like show up and come to this dinner that we're like having. And so I reached out to them all and I said, hey, would you like to start an organization and be on a board of directors and be like a fake organization, but then people will like think it's real and like come to this like dinner? And so then they all were like, they loved the idea, so they all said yes. And then I like created this website and went back out like on Facebook and said that like I'm creating an organization. Does anyone want to be on an advisory board? And about 30 physicians and trainees like reached out and said they would love to be on an advisory board. I think it's a really great idea because everyone said that when they went to medical school or like going through the training process, they didn't know anyone else.
Wow.
And so everyone wanted to meet each other and thought it would be a really good idea to be able to provide support to the younger generation who are going through it. And so that all happened within like 48 hours.
Wow.
And then it was like just like a conversation, like on his ground, like, hey, do you want to like get together and like speak? Like, it could be really cool. And then like it was just like a conversation like that. It wasn't like a whole entire like official thing. And then we decided to like post on like Facebook that like we're starting an organization and like we're hosting an inaugural event. Like, we, instead of like this like dinner, we literally were like, what's a success? It's like 10 people come. That was like going to be our success. It's 10 people other than ourselves who are like speaking on a panel. And then within 5 days, 100 people signed up.
Wow.
At the start of the organization.
That's fantastic. Wow. I love that. I love that you were so confident in reaching out to people that you considered like role models, and, you know, you didn't have any hesitation in doing that. And then it really grew into something amazing. And I know several physicians who are part of JOWMA and who are very seasoned physicians and love the group, and they feel like it's really filling a need for the frum physicians. So I think that's fantastic. And, you know, congratulations for doing that. I think it's like really gutsy and it's really amazing. It shows that you're super motivated. And I really want to thank you for giving me your time. I know it's really valuable and you're busy with 100 things, including running a professional organization while you're in medical school. But I really appreciate it because I think, you know, like we discussed, it's so important for women and girls to know that there's so many options out there for them, and that, you know, if you're motivated and if this is a dream that you want to do, it's really something that you can do. And I think you're a great example of that.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
I think you really are. Like, you're a great role model. And if anybody wants to see more about your story, they can find you on Instagram, right?
Yes.
So your Instagram handle is mom.futuremd. And your story is really, really nice. And I like how inspirational your page is. So everybody can go follow Eliana there. And Eliana, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And good luck in everything you do. Good luck in the rest of medical school, being a mom, being a wife, doing it all.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.